Now it's time to welcome our next guest, Michael Eastham. Michael is a CPA and founder of Fellowship Financial Group, a retirement income store located outside of Orlando, Florida. He's also the Amazon best-selling author of the book, Common Sense Income Strategies. So Michael, contested election. The president is making his best efforts to try to go to the courts and make his case. But as a CPA, what are your worst tax fears if he's not successful and we're truly in January with the Biden presidency?
Well, first of all, I don't think we're going to see impacts in January. It'll certainly be later in 2021. But look, if he just pulls out all the stops on the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, well, then, I think we're going to see companies that are going to take their businesses overseas. It's almost could be a punitive tax for corporations. That's one of the reasons why they left to begin with. So that's a big deal. And I also have a hard time believing that in the short run, he's not going to impact taxes on the middle class, everyday Americans who work really hard and try to preserve and reinvest in small business owners. So those are kind of my worst fears.
Yeah, especially if the runoff in Georgia goes blue and they've got the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office. That's when that stuff could certainly happen. So okay, so let's get down to brass.
Carolina, pretty much. So that helps. At least it helps to solidify some of the base.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's a long shot at this point. A lot's got to go right for him. But okay, so let's talk about, regardless, what are some of the things that you tell your clients that are in or near retirement they could be doing in today's environment to save income taxes?
Well, first of all, of course, you do, related to the coronavirus, the CARES Act put a couple of things out there for people, whether they're retirement age or even a little bit earlier. The coronavirus related distribution, or CRD, it waives the 10% penalty from an IRA or 401k if you're under 59 and a half. And it gives you the flexibility to recognize a distribution from those accounts over a 3-year period of time. Normally, you have to recognize any distribution fully in the first year, but you have that longer period of time to recognize it. So that can help in taxes. If you need the income, if you need the money, maybe you were furloughed or something, and they allow you to pay it back over a 3-year period of time. Normally, you have a 60-day window to avoid any taxes, but the IRS is going to treat this payback as a custodian to custodian transfer over a 3-year period of time. So that's one thing. For folks who are affected by RMDs, typically, well, because of COVID, there aren't any RMDs. So this was certainly to help people that got hit hard by the stock market dump back in March. But it's not as big of an issue since the market's recovered. But what that does do is, if you're RMD age, then you may want to consider a partial or a full Roth conversion, because one of the benefits in this year, and you got to do it by December 31st, is that you have the RMD typically is not convertible to a Roth, but since there aren't any Roths, or not any RMDs this year, then you can convert the entire amount of your distribution to a Roth. And, you've got plenty of benefits to converting to a Roth. So if you don't need that income, this could be a great time to do it.
Okay. All right. Great. What other advice? Those that live in high tax states, in case the SALT limits go away, maybe deferring property tax payments, things like that until 2021, maybe to get a bigger deduction on itemizing.
You can certainly do that. You can certainly do that. But also, if you're charitably minded, qualified charitable distribution is a big deal. A QCD is something where you can take money from your 401k or your IRA. If you're, of course, you've got to be 70 and a half. But if you're charitably minded anyway, and you were affected now because you're not able to itemize, the limit of the standard deduction increased so much, a lot of people aren't able to itemize anymore. But you could take money and give it to a charity directly from one custodian to the 501c3, and the IRS recognizes that as an RMD, and you don't have to report that as taxable income. The catch here is that you've got to do it by December 31st. That's a hard stop. So that's a big deal.
Yep, that's great. So getting away from taxes for a minute, in the minute and a half we have left, what are your biggest concerns right now for the financial markets under a Biden presidency, especially under a blue sweep if that ends up happening, for people like our clients, our viewers, our listeners that are close to or in retirement?
I think some of the biggest concerns is that people panic. You know, if people start to panic, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And unfortunately, the media doesn't help much in that regard. And then the second thing is that if the government really starts to go towards this liberalized, socialism model, well, it's very concerning. You know, they're just going to start cranking the printing presses higher and higher, even more than they already have. Not that they haven't printed much this year or in the last few years, but even more than they have in the past, to try and fund some of these ridiculous programs. And that does create a substantial concern in terms of the financial stability of U.S. markets. So, and also the perception of financial strength overseas. So those are some of the things that I struggle with. I think most people really need to take a hard look at the amount of income they need. They need to look hard at the sources of that income and the reliability of that income, so that they can feel comfortable and at least a lot more confident that they're not going to run out of income before they run out of life in retirement.
Yep. Always good words of wisdom, Michael. Thank you so much for being with us. And you stay with us too. We have more to come on the income generation. We'll be right back.